Okay, let's go ahead and look at question number 8. It said the demon drop at Cedar Point in Ohio takes riders to the top of the tower and drops them 60 feet. A function that approximates this ride is h of t equals negative 16t squared plus 24t plus 120, where h is the height in feet and t is the time in seconds. So what we're going to do is we're going to first go ahead and take this quadratic function that they give us, and we're going to go ahead and type it into Desmos. Okay, so this is what it would look like. And before we actually look at the questions, I kind of want to break down what we see. So, typed into Desmos into line 1 exactly as I saw it. I then had to zoom out a little bit because I needed to see the whole graph. So if you notice, they give us, when I clicked the quadratic, it gave me 4 points. Well, let's talk about this point down here. This point has an x value that's a negative 2.089. We're talking about things that are happening in real life. We do not have going negative 2 seconds here. So when we're looking at our quadratic, we do not want to look at the point that has a negative x value. We want to look at our point that's 1 on the y-axis, because this here, this point, this is called our y-intercept. And our y-intercept in our word problem is very important. That's our initial value, or what we call like our starting amount. So that's important. The next important piece is this top point here. This is called our maximum. Our maximum has our x value, which our x value represents time, and our y value, which represents our height. So this tells us how high the highest point is on our graph. And then the third and final point is this point down here. This point down here is our ground. So sometimes the ground isn't actually a ground. It could be like the river or the lake, but it's down at the bottom, like where we're talking about our surface. So same thing that's important here is our x value. Our x value is our time, which makes sense that our y value is our height, and it's a height of 0 because it's our ground. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at question number 1. Question number 1 says, what is the rider's initial height? So we're talking about initial height at the top of the tower. So our initial height here is our y-intercept. It's our number that goes with 0. So our initial height is 120. All right, let's look at question number 2. Question number 2 says, how many seconds are the riders on the ride when they reach 104 feet? Well, we don't see any 104 on our graph. We're going to come back to that one. So let's just hold off for a second. Let's look at C. C says, how long does it take for the riders to reach the ground? Well, we already saw the ground is this point on the right-hand side down here. And it's asking how long. So it's asking for that x value. So our x value at the ground is this 3.589. Okay, so what is the highest point on the ride? Well, the highest point, we're looking up at the top here at our maximum height. Our maximum, and it says what is the highest point? So we're looking at our height value. So that is 129 feet. Okay, so I said let's go ahead and skip B real quick. That's because it's asking for where are the riders on the height when it reaches 104 feet. Well, 104 feet is a height value. So in Desmos, we're going to go ahead and add y equals 104. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I went ahead and I typed y equals 104 in line 2. So if you could see, we now have that line crossing through our quadratic. And it's really important to notice that so this point here on the left has a negative x value. Well, we don't use those because that's a negative. This second point here has a value, an x value of 0. Well, that point itself is not even touching my quadratic, touching that red line. So we don't want to use that one either. This case, there's only one solution. There's only one spot, which is here, that green line and that red line are crossing, that has a positive x value. So what this means is that there are 2 seconds that the riders are on the ride where it would reach 104 feet off the ground. Now, there is one more type of question that you might see. So I'm going to go ahead and move this one out of the way. And it might ask something like this. How long will it take to get from the highest point to the ground? Well, we talked about the highest point being up here, and it is asking how long. So when it's asking how long, we're looking only at those x values. We're looking at time. Well, at that time, it's 0.75 seconds at the highest point, and at the ground, we're looking at an x value of 3.589. So to find this, what we would do is we would say 3.589 minus our 0.75, and that would tell us that we would have 2.839, and that is how long it would take to get from the highest point to the ground. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice question number 1. Go ahead and read the question, type this equation into Desmos, and answer the following questions. Okay, and then let's go ahead and look at question number 2. Go ahead and read the problem, type in the function equation that it gives you, and go ahead and answer the questions.